Imagine waking up tomorrow to the most impossible headline in modern history. The United States and China have formed a military alliance against Russia. Two of the world's biggest rivals suddenly become allies, creating the most powerful military coalition ever imagined. Moscow immediately enters its highest state of military alert. Russian commanders prepare for a conflict unlike anything seen since the Cold War. Joint naval task forces begin moving toward strategic positions across the world's oceans. Aircraft that once trained against each other now fly side by side under a single mission. Military planners begin coordinating operations across two continents at the same time. Russian ground forces mobilize at full speed, preparing to defend thousands of kilometers of territory. Combined industrial production quickly becomes one of the alliance's greatest strategic advantages. The world watches in disbelief as an impossible alliance prepares for its first move. Military commanders from both nations begin coordinating what could become the largest joint operation in modern history. Combined naval forces establish control over key sea routes before the first shot is fired. Russian air bases launch continuous combat patrols to protect critical military infrastructure. Reinforcements begin arriving from every direction as both sides prepare for a prolonged conflict. Analysts warn that Russia could soon face simultaneous pressure from two completely different fronts. Military supplies move across thousands of kilometers as logistics become a race against time. Air power from two rival nations is now operating under a single unified command. Across Europe, governments prepare for the possibility that the conflict could spread beyond its original borders. Russia deploys nearly every available naval asset to secure its northern and eastern maritime approaches. After weeks of preparation, diplomacy has failed. The first military confrontation is now only moments away. The first shots are fired. After weeks of tension, the impossible alliance enters open conflict with Russia. For the first time in history, American and Chinese armored forces advance side by side. Russian commanders respond immediately, launching coordinated counterattacks from multiple directions. Air superiority becomes the alliance's highest priority as hundreds of combat aircraft enter the battlefield. Russia activates its layered air defenses, forcing Allied aircraft to operate with extreme caution. Far from the front lines, a major naval battle erupts across freezing northern waters. Critical transportation routes are destroyed, slowing the movement of reinforcements on both sides. Logistics quickly become as important as combat, with thousands of vehicles supplying the front every day. As casualties rise, field hospitals work around the clock to keep soldiers alive. The conflict expands rapidly, becoming one of the largest conventional wars the modern world has ever imagined. As darkness falls, the sky erupts with missile launches, signaling a dangerous new phase of the conflict. Around-the-clock air operations allow Allied aircraft to remain over the battlefield for hours at a time. Russia responds with a massive armored counteroffensive, attempting to halt the Allied advance. Thousands of artillery shells pound defensive positions, turning entire sectors into fields of fire. The battlefield now stretches across multiple regions, forcing commanders to divide their resources. Behind every frontline victory lies an even greater battle, the race to keep supplies moving. At sea, powerful fleets compete for control of strategic shipping lanes and critical supply routes. Combat engineers work under relentless pressure, restoring damaged infrastructure before the next attack begins. Even the strongest armies begin to feel the weight of continuous combat and mounting losses. After weeks of relentless fighting, neither side has achieved a decisive breakthrough. The war is only becoming more dangerous. The Allied advance continues, but every kilometer comes at an enormous cost in equipment and manpower. Russia commits additional reserve forces, determined to prevent a strategic collapse. Control of the skies becomes one of the defining factors of the entire campaign. Every destroyed supply depot weakens the ability to sustain large-scale military operations. As the fighting intensifies, world leaders search desperately for a diplomatic solution. Beyond the battlefield, millions of civilians face the devastating consequences of prolonged war. Industrial production becomes just as important as battlefield victories. Russian engineers race to restore critical transport routes before new attacks can strike. Weeks of continuous combat leave entire regions transformed into devastated battlefields. What began as an impossible alliance has now reshaped the global balance of power. Allied logistics continue operating around the clock, supplying thousands of troops across multiple active fronts. Russian industry pushes to replace battlefield losses, proving that production can be as decisive as combat itself. Every hour, control of the skies shifts as both sides fight for strategic air superiority. The cost of the campaign becomes impossible to ignore, with enormous losses on every side. As the conflict drags on, the leaders of the United States and China meet once again to coordinate their next strategic decisions. As the war drags on, the battlefield extends far beyond the front lines, disrupting global trade, energy markets, and international stability. President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping review the latest battlefield reports as their commanders prepare the alliance's next strategic move. Inside the Kremlin, President Vladimir Putin receives new intelligence as Russian commanders organize the next phase of the nation's defense. After weeks of relentless fighting, the outcome remains uncertain, leaving the world to wonder which strategy will ultimately reshape the global balance of power. One impossible alliance, one global conflict. But what do you think? Could the United States and China really defeat Russia together, or would Moscow find a way to turn the tide? Share your opinion below and subscribe for more alternate history war documentaries.